And we've actually done this for $133 million in projects. So this could be sales to crowdfunding to Amazon sales. So that's kind of our specialty. I always start with this slide. People always wonder, hey, how does increasing your Amazon sales look like? And it can apply to, growth marketing a company. But everybody always thinks that there's a linear model. And what I always like to say is that it's really more like the model on the right. It's a lot of trial and error, testing. For example, in the world of influencers, you can't always assume that an influencer that, if you have a mommy product, something for young mothers, and mommy bloggers were to post it, you cannot always expect them to lead to sales. And I'll break down why and how to find them, how to vet them, and how to contact them. So the purpose of this is actually to help you navigate the waters of influencer marketing and helping you, increase your Amazon sales. So I wanted to paint the problem. A lot of people, like what was just discussed earlier, influencer marketing is becoming the number one trend for 2021. Everybody's looking at it. The problem is, there's three problems that people run into. Is that you're looking at lists that don't work. A lot of times, if you search on Google, give me influencer lists for reviewers, it just doesn't work. They get outdated so quickly. Number two, not getting replies. So a lot of times people, I'm sure a lot of your community is saying this. I keep reaching out to influencers, but they're just not responding. Like, why? My product is such an interesting product, but no one's responding. No one wants to work with me. And then number three is time. So many startups, I was in this same position 7 years ago. I would work by 9 to 6, and then I would work from 7 to 2 a.m. And time was just not on my side. So outreach is extremely time consuming. And, that's where, working with teams with influencer agencies come in. They can help offset that. So how do we do it? The goal of this webinar is actually to give you a blueprint and framework so you can actually do it yourself. So I'm here to give as much resources and knowledge and experience. And hopefully, you can walk away with some new tips on helping you market to influencers your next product. So why use influencers? I always ask this question. So yes, it is a big trend in 2021. But you also have to look at who are the market leaders on Amazon sales. So for example, Anchor, Xiaomi, their sub-brands, Eufy, RealLink, Nebula, RoidMe. These are all massive, massive Amazon sellers. And all of them are using influencers. So why do I make this comparison? It's because if the big brands are using this to scale their sales, it is 100% obtainable for smaller brands, and especially if you have something innovative and different. So a case study I want to share with you, because a lot of sellers sometimes come to me and they'll say, hey, I don't even know, I want to see with my own eyes how this works. So let me actually share with you one of the case studies we went through. So right here on my screen, you can see her name is Katie Hearn. Now she's a beautiful young mother based in Louisville, Kentucky. So we reached out to her on behalf of Amazon, Anchor, who's one of Amazon's largest electronic seller. So you can see here at the bottom, there's the post with her showing the vacuum. They sell electronic vacuums. Everything was done through the Amazon affiliate program. And I can tell you between 2 and 3 days, she single-handedly sold around $90,000 in robot vacuums. So keep in mind that this robot vacuum is a $400 unit, but you can see the power of connecting with an influencer that's a perfect match for your product. And on average, some of these larger brands, on average, their return on investment is 10 to 1 through influencers. So when you're taking a look at even on the PPC side, influencers can actually yield better results depending on who you're looking and working with. Another case study, Calm by Wellness. This is a CBD brand, and they actually grew their entire e-commerce side through YouTube reviews. So when I say influencer, I also want to make the distinction that, hey, it's not just, people posting pictures, it's also those people that create reviews, dedicated reviews, talking about, in this case, it is a CBD product, talking about how it helps them with their anxiety. So that's also another area where influencers can help, is creating review videos. All right. So at this point, is there any questions so far? I'd love to entertain them if there are any questions.
So there are no questions from the audience, Ivan, but I have a question for you. You mentioned PPC and how influencers can help increase the ROI of PPC. Can you explain a little bit about how that works?
Yeah. So, I mean, just taking a look at traditional paid media. So paid media, depending on your conversions, of course, inside of the Amazon ecosystem, you have to use their ad ecosystem. But traditionally, and even I'm just even pulling this even larger than Amazon, just traditional return on ad spends, it's very hard to get a consistent 11-1 and 10-1. And that's actually so that means every $1 that you spend on an influencer, they are getting $10 back. Mm-hmm. Does that answer your question?
Okay. Yeah, makes sense. So yeah, it's clear now. Okay, let's keep going.
All right. So one of the questions I get asked is, what is the difference between an influencer and a micro influencer? So I've broken it down into two charts. You can see the column on the left for influencer, column on the right for micro influencer. So an influencer, a lot of people will think these are those AAA, large celebrities. Yes, they're great, but they also cost a lot. And some of the other points to make about them is that unless you are truly integrated into their story, it won't lead conversions. Okay. So a lot of these major celebrities, they will have the large following, but not necessarily converting to buyers unless it's a perfect fit for their community. As opposed to the micro influencers, which can be cheaper, and they create content not just because of their story, but because of the content type they create. So you can actually have exclusive content. For example, reviews. This is a great one for Amazon sellers. You can have micro influencers create content for you. An influencer will have longer lead time, while micro influencers will have shorter lead time. Major influencers will require brand exclusivity, while micro influencers, they can work with multiple brands, and many brands even in the same sector. Influencers may require contracts, and micro influencers, they don't. A lot of times they're even doing it for free product. The key differentiation here that I would like to focus on is that a major influencer, you get the sales from the engagement, meaning if someone is actively engaging on their posts, are they liking it? Are they commenting on it? That's how you tell if an influencer is going to be returning what the returns are, as opposed to micro influencers you target on the SEO side and the views. So you're probably wondering, where do I find these influencers? How do I find them? So the number one platform that we recommend is one called GroupHigh. We are not affiliated with them. I'm actually mentioning them because they have one of the biggest databases, and they aggregate Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, all the above. And it's a very simple and easy way where you can filter by who you're looking for. So, places like GroupHigh, they can give you access to, and you can even filter by specific hashtags. So definitely try them out. If you want to see who's out there on the influencer side, GroupHigh is probably the best low price platform that I use. There are other ones that have come and gone. GroupHigh has actually been the most stable one that we've seen. Another place you can find them is actually, if you just search Google, there are a lot of companies now realizing that influencers is the number one channel for sales. So they're all creating content around influencers. For example, on the right, you can see HubSpot. HubSpot is actually a very big company that creates CRM software for outreach. They published this guide to the ultimate list of Instagram influencers in every industry. So what I'm trying to say is that the information is out there. These lists are out there, and the entire global community is seeing that this is the way to e-commerce. This is the way to sales. So I recommend platforms. And also, if you have the time, and this is where it becomes time consuming, you can also look on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. a lot of times, if these content creators are doing it for a living, they're going to make their contact information visible. So it's as easy as clicking on the profile, sending them a message. There's a tip that I always recommend. If you're messaging an influencer, be very forward from the very start. So if you want to work with them, include that in the very first message, business opportunity. You don't have to beat around the bush, because if they're looking to get paid and they're looking to work with you, they're just going to prioritize those items in the inbox. So that's a pro tip for you. All right. So how do you reach these influencers? And I'm going to get a little bit more specific, but in a nutshell, on the left, you can see what those outreach scripts look like. They're very programmatic. You can see I have 10 versions of outreach scripts. This is the biggest problem that we see across all brands, is that they think that they've created the best pitch script and they just send a single email. That's the problem, is that you never know what walk of life these influencers are coming from. You actually have to test it. We A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K test everything. You don't know what works until you know what works. So we come up with variations. That is the key. It's actually testing through numbers. On the right, you can see one of our clients, and you can see November 27th, November 28th, December 11th, December 12th, December 17th. Working with influencers does not happen overnight. You have to build the relationship with them. And many times, sometimes they don't even understand your product. That is where the most difficult part about working for influencers comes from. It's that constant communication and just testing. Be personalized and interested. The number one influencers want to be talked about is what they're working on. Everybody likes to hear that what they're working on is the coolest thing. Or if you're traveling, how's your time in Spain? This is actually an example of Patrina, one of the influencers for Calm by Wellness. But we regularly send her videos. We regularly send her updates. Influencers, they're in the business of being followed, and they like to see that they're being followed. So be personalized, send them DMs. They could be the key to your next big, all-time highest selling day on Amazon. Speak their language. So many times I speak to companies and they're just sending out emails. If they're truly an influencer, they like to be talked to. And so you can see here, I'm actually getting interviewed by an influencer. On the left, you can see our associate. His name is Devin. But every time we reach out to a high-profile influencer, it's a video call. Don't be sending emails at this point. People really want to build that relationship with you. All right, another big tip on how to work with influencers: you have to make it easy for them. A lot of brands, they take the high route, they take the road where they think the influencer is working for us, you're going to have to work with me. The problem is there are so many brands trying to reach that same influencer. If you make it difficult for them, that'll lower the chance of them creating content for you. There are so many brands out there that send nonstop free content, and they make it so difficult for the influencer that the influencer decides not to post anything. So I'll give you an example. Provide assets. A lot of times, influencers are so busy, if you send them a photo, they'll post that photo for you. And so just make it as easy as possible. If anybody has heard of this brand called Majuri, they're a jewelry company. And you can see that they've created a guideline that they send to every single influencer that they work with. And what is the purpose of this? It's because now you can work at scale. Instead of just talking to a single influencer, you create a guideline and a system that you can send to 100 influencers. And now you're working at scale. Not only are you working at scale, but now you're also making sure that the influencers are posting the right content. So let me rewind this a little bit. So how does an influencer post content that yields and converts? If you're doing it on Amazon, you're using an Amazon affiliate link. And you want to make sure You may or may not be working on with the influencer to this level, but if you are, you want to make sure that they use the correct link. So by having this guideline, you can also make sure that they're using the correct link and not messing up, because that is the other problem, is that influencers may or may not be professionals, especially in the micro influencer world. Leave as much or leave as little as you can to their creativity. You want to spell everything out for them. You can see here in the content guidelines, you can actually tell them what hashtags to use, what it can or cannot be featured with, to what kind of photos. So this is key, because as many of you guys are all creating brands, creating Amazon brands. I'm sure you are so busy running the business that it's going to be difficult to, reel in some of these influences and make sure that they're making the right content. So we always recommend make a guide, make it easy for them, make it easy for you. So this is another very overlooked concept, is that the pitch that you're sending to these influencers may or may not make sense to them. And this is a good framework that we always share. And just to break it down for you, it's actually, what do? What are the biggest differentiators? Put that right from the start, and even put it in the subject line. Why is it important to them? And include a brief introduction. No one likes being pitched and they have no idea who they're talking to. Social proof is incredibly important. Brands are building, for example, Midjourney. They have so much social proof in their guide that the influencer sees this and they're actually more convinced to want to work with you, because they see and it looks like other influencers are working with them. So put your social accolades, your social proof here, link to learn more. This is always good to create video and content around your brand. Show them that you did research on them and create some personalization, and then always have a call to action. You cannot have an email that does not have a call to action. So these slides, they can be made available to you if you ask. I'd love to send it to you. These are, good resources that we recommend to everyone who is trying to start a brand. Okay, so now that you've reached the influencer, how do you make sure that the content they're creating is going to have the highest yield? You don't want them just to create. This is a big problem right now for a lot of brands, where they'll say, I sent out 10 products for free to influencers, and it's not yielding any sales. I'm not seeing any conversions. I hear this time and time again. Influencers are not in the business of optimizing content. Just like you are, that you understand how important it is to optimize your Amazon listing, description, product thumbnail, you can't expect an influencer to be as savvy as you are. So this is what we always recommend. Give them in that guideline what they should put when they create that content. So you can see here, this is a great example. So Eufy, which is actually our client, Jury Rig Everything is a very, very big electronics influencer. He gets it right. So you can see at the very top, a product focused thumbnail. Number 2, again, this is on the YouTube platform. So if you're having your influencers create content on the YouTube, this is what you should follow. A product focused thumbnail, number 1. Number 2, an SEO optimized title. The same way that you create product descriptions on Amazon, you have to use that same mentality and thinking. I don't know if you're using Helium 10, but there's a lot of tools to help you. The flip side is that YouTube is looking at user search intent. So they're looking at Google algorithms. So you have to put yourself in the shoes of a customer. What is a customer searching for? So in his case, he knows that people are searching for security camera, wireless security cameras. So make sure that's inside your title, because Google only indexes the title. And my third point is what's above the fold. So if you look at this description and you can see the show more. So I know many of your viewers may be international, but in the United States, YouTube is king of content right now. So if you're creating reviews, you want to go on YouTube. Or if you're creating reviews, you must put it on YouTube. So you can see there's a show more button here at the very bottom. Everything above the show more is called above the fold. And unless you click on the show more, it doesn't show it. And actually Google won't index it. So everything that's important SEO wise, including your Amazon links, needs to be above the fold. So if you do those three things when you're working with an influencer on YouTube, you'll have a much higher chance of that video becoming highly converting. There's a lot of technical details, but again, I wanted to say the purpose of me being here is to share my knowledge and resources with you. So definitely take notes. Another big tip when you're working with influencers is build a pipeline. Many of you may not be familiar with what a sales funnel is. I have a feeling that many of you are, but when you're working with an influencer, here's a good example of what a pipeline looks like. So you have interested. That's step one. Are they interested? Step number two, are you negotiating with them? Are they finding more about your brand, finding more about the product? Have they accepted to create content for you yet? Moving into step three, shipping. That's when you ship it to them. So you give them an update. Hey, it's been shipped out. It should arrive in 7 days. Then they go into production. Production could be anywhere between 2 to 3 weeks. Close one. And that's when they post the actual product video. So build a pipeline. And the reason why I'm saying this is because there are often times, depending on your product, that you're going to have 300 to 400 influencers in your pipeline. And you have to look at it like a business. These are leads. Unless you have a organized pipeline, you're going to lose track of where they are. I've seen so many companies where they will show me their inbox and they have 500 emails. They don't even know where to start to do a follow-up. Why? Because they don't have a pipeline. They don't have a systematic way of moving them along to become an influencer for your product. So I can tell you, this is a very overlooked step because a lot of business owners don't have the experience of working in sales and understanding that it takes a step-by-step process to win over an influencer. All right, so I'm going to step a little bit back, and this is where you can utilize an influencer to create content for you. So a lot of people, a lot of brands, they're actually having the influencers become their spokesman. More and more, people are looking at brands on Amazon and they're going to try to find out who's the team behind them, who are the spokesmen behind it. So you can see here that brands live through videos today. We always recommend you to do that and actually distribute those brand videos. For example, in Amazon, if you have AAA content, I don't know if everyone has access to, let's say, Launchpad or even like the enhanced brand content. This is where you can integrate video into your listings. So that wraps up a lot of the resources that I wanted to provide. We help companies and we help brands outreach to these influencers. So we can help you. We have a 10% coupon exclusive to this group. It's India. If you go to our website, I'll provide the link later, but it's going to be valid until March 2021. So we can help you do the researching, the contacting, the negotiating, to booking, to actually creating the content on your behalf. But yeah, so that's a little bit about me, what we can do for you.
That is absolutely fantastic information, Ivan. That was really, really good. I mean, I really liked how you sort of went over all the steps, right from starting from, finding an influencer to contacting them and also the content. So that was a good overview of the entire process. And are you okay to share the slides with people later so that, they can have access to all of the content and the
Yes.
packages as well?
I'd
Okay,
love
so
to send it. And there's also a bunch of questions.
yeah, let's take the
Do you
questions
want me
now.
to
So
answer
I'm gonna.
some of them?
Oh, I have a question.
Kevin,
I
you got
was.
priority.
Thank you, Ivan. No, I was just going to say, wow. I mean, there's a lot of stuff there, but I mean, as far as like a business, like influencer marketing, is there a lot of VAs that specialize in this type of thing?
There are. There are a
Because
lot
I
of
mean,
VAs.
us as business owners, it's another thing that we have to do, right? And so, like when you start talking about having heaps of a pipeline and other things, I'm thinking, oh my god, like it's more work. And a lot of people are thinking, oh no, I've got more work to do. It's bad enough just looking after Amazon now. So yeah, that was my question.
There are a lot of VAs that specialize in
Yeah,
this.
yeah.
So if you look at influencer marketing specifically, I don't know what resources you're looking at for VAs, but you just search for the job description influencer marketing. There
Yeah.
are, I mean, I can tell you that they've been doing it for the past 5 to 6 years. It just hasn't been called influencer marketing. So the skill sets are already out there. It's nothing
Yeah.
new.
Now,
But
I'm sure a lot of people would like to, sort of outsource that sort of thing.
Well, that's what Ivan's company does. When you
Yeah,
hire
well,
Ivan
that's
for
it. Exactly.
that's what my company
Ivan's
does.
doing it. Yeah, yeah,
But I'm here to be a resource for everyone. I want to just
yeah.
tell it exactly like how it is, because I know many of you are, like what Claire said, too small for this professional system. What I always suggest, and let me actually go through those questions. But before I
Let
do,
me display the questions on the screen one by one so that we don't miss any. So, did you want to say something else before we get to the questions?
yeah, I just wanted to say that influencer marketing is only called influencer marketing in the past few years, but in the past, it's looking for. I mean, if you think of the past and you think of, let's say, I don't know, Gap or Baby Gap, it's like you have the friend or the mom that's going to recommend it to you, right? You have your neighbor that's going to say, "Hey, this is a great pair of jeans. I love it," or your coworker. But now, with the advent of the digital age, and we have YouTube, we have social media, that's where that concept has translated to become what an influencer is. But essentially, it's almost like what happened in the word of mouth world, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 years ago. It's nothing new. It's digital now.
Right. Okay, so let's take questions now. So Deborah is asking, many influencers are starting to sell product themselves. Should we avoid these influencers?
I would say, to be very frank, a lot of influencers, they will start to sell their own product and they'll realize they can't do it. So I would not be afraid to work with them. In fact, I've seen this happen so many times where they end up working with the brand because they don't have the infrastructure and the access to the inventory or the sourcing that you have. A lot of times they'll come up with a great concept and they'll end up just merging their brand with your brand. So don't be afraid to work with them. If they already have their own brand and they're really committed to it, chances are they'll just say no and move on to the next one.
Right. So this is a comment. I think when you were talking about different types of influencers, smaller and bigger influencers and micro influencers. So the influencer story and brand would need to match the product. I have also looked into this. Okay, so Kelly saying, interesting. However, I hope I never have to reach out to these people.
Actually,
Kelly.
I have a comment for you, Kelly. I don't know what your product is, but I can tell you that the younger generation has been very savvy. But I know, I mean, personally, my own mom and my own mother and father, they are buying products. They used to look at Amazon reviews, but now they look at YouTube on how to use the product. So I would even say this: try not to think of them as an influencer. Think of them as people just sharing how to use your product. And I can tell you that one of the slides I actually removed, but it's creating educational content with your influencers. So let's say, for example, you have, I don't know, a microphone that you're selling a microphone. What are people going to be looking for? They're going to be looking for how to set up your microphone. And you have an influencer telling them how to set up a microphone, and they'll talk about your product. So not necessarily, like a fancy, beautiful looking picture, but now you know that people are researching, and that's where you get into the mind of the consumer. You think of what is their search intent.
Right. So, Mark, for products that we source from India, what do you think about maybe working with these influencers to tell the story of how the product is manufactured, or the story of the artisans, or the history of the craft, for example, or maybe a brand like Beach, for example, where they use a lot of eco-friendly products. We could talk about how those products are manufactured. And you're muted. Do you want to unmute first?
That's right, the dog was barking. Yeah, no, look, I think it's going to be fantastic because it's so much easier to get, like, that brand story. You can put it down in your EBC, but do people stop and read all that content? So I think to get India's story, and I mean, unless you've sort of probably been involved with India, I never thought till we went to India about all that backstory and how it all happens and that. But once you've been there and seen it, so I think, it needs probably a lot of publicity, and this is a good way to actually get the India story out.
Yeah. That's what I think will differentiate, your products from maybe other products that are from other countries. You have the story. Okay, so another question. I think this is Roz. So how would you work out extra inventory if you need it, if you use an influencer? Will that depend on the amount of their followers?
Yes. I would actually go back to what is your objective. So let's say, the people in this community are from all walks of life. Some of you could be doing 9-figure businesses. Some can be starting up. So I would say just allocate whatever you have available. When it comes to the amount of followers they have, it's usually it's a sliding scale. If they have a lot of followers, they're going to charge you for it. If you have the budget, you're going to want to have the ones with the higher following. So it's basically how many people you want to reach, how much budget do you have. On the flip side, it's going to be how much you can convince them to work with you. So if you have a product that's very deeply rooted in sustainability, and you find an influencer that's promoting sustainability, specifically with artisan projects from India, he or she was going to say, hey, I don't want to charge you a penny. I just want to help get the word out. So in those cases, those are the ideal scenarios. In terms of how much inventory, all you need is as little as one. I can tell you, we launched a UVC air purifier. Actually, the last time we talked, we were just talking about how we launched it. So we only had 5 units in America. We made the best use of it, and we raised almost $650,000 through crowdfunding for it. But we only had 5 units. We just had to be really clever with it. So it's like what I was saying. It's that match. Find that match with the influencers. That's going to be, I've been looking for this product my entire life. I just want it. I don't want your money. I just want it. So
then they pre-order? Was that the entire?
Correct. They just pre-ordered. Okay. So the product's actually on its way, but it's already been fully pre-ordered. So the entire cargo cargo has already been pre-sold.
Right. So in terms of inventory, like if you do want to get people to buy the product immediately and not pre-order, then I guess it would depend on the size of the community, right? And you could probably even talk to the influencer and ask them what sort of sales to expect, because they would know typically what kind of sales, get in their community.
Actually, that's a good point. If you ask anyone, any influencer that does it for a living, they're going to know their own conversion rates, because chances are a lot of them, if they're, so here's a pro tip. If you go to YouTube and you search AMZN, I don't know if anybody's tried this, but if you go to YouTube and you search AMZN and your product type, those are the influencers that are talking about your product, and they're using the Amazon shortener link. So you already know they're inside the Amazon affiliate ecosystem. So especially when they're like that, they already know their own conversion rates.
Nice. Both Mark and I were like noting that down.
Because that's the link that Amazon affiliates must use. So if you know that they're already posting Amazon affiliate links for another product, you don't have to convince them anything. They're already invested in the Amazon ecosystem.